Mr. Yarborough.
Here.
Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you very much. Chancellor Wong. Sir. Would you please introduce your students and faculty for the invocation and pledge allegiance, and your faculty member to address the board? Thank you.
Sure. I have two students from LSU. One is Betsy Vasquez, and the other is Anthony Phelps. Betsy will lead the invocation.
Let's bow our heads in prayer. Dear God, thank you on behalf of all who are here today. Thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing responsibilities. I pray for LSU and our leaders here today, and that grant them wisdom while making these important decisions. I pray for all of our students across Louisiana, our country, and the world. Please comfort those who have been affected by hurricanes Harvey and Irma, and the first responders and volunteers that have helped so many. Please watch over all the students, faculty, and staff at LSU as they return to campus. In your blessed name we pray, amen.
Betsy is from Ecuador. Why don't you say a few words about yourself?
Okay, my name is Betsy Vasquez. I came to LSUA as a tennis player, and I'm glad to be here today. LSUA has given me the opportunity to achieve so many things I always wanted in life, and I think the most important and valuable thing that LSU has is its people. Everybody is always really helpful, and everybody wants to help you to succeed.
Thank you.
I'm looking for a doubles partner this weekend. You're available?
Where's she from? Ecuador.
Ecuador.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
good.
So, thank you. Anthony Phelps will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Anthony.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anthony just came back from Thailand on the trip for student university student leadership. Why don't you talk about yourself as well?
All right, so just one quick note on the Thailand trip. You are actually looking at a wool silk blend of the finest Thailand silk. So, and I'll have you know, it's custom fit. Even the shirt is custom fit for about a third of the price of a suit here in the U.S. But that's the disclaimer for the country of Thailand. It's wonderful. Anyways, so a little bit about myself. I'll make it brief. I understand we're running a bit, little hopping around the schedule. I am Anthony Phelps, originally from Texas. I have blood roots all the way to Louisiana, of course, back Bogalusa and central Louisiana. And then born and raised in Texas, though, and I was $495 non-refundable dollars committed to Texas A&M, and 2 days away from fish camp when I got a merit scholarship award letter from LSUA. And I said, you know what? I kind of like the big fish in a small pond idea. So I called them up, worked through the hassle of out-of-state fees and all that other discouragement process about maybe thinking I wasn't going to be able to attend the university here. But basically, long story short, I have to say I'm continually grateful because it was some administrative good faith on behalf of our admissions and advising staff and our interim chancellor at the time, Dr. Daniel Howard, who actually wrote it in to where I could have a potential, could have the ability to attend the university here at LSUA. And so I like to say that just to be able to give you some background, say 3 years later, I'm a dual major, communications and psychology. I do have plans to attend graduate school here, and so I think that investment paid off, if I must say so myself. But no, I'm continually thankful for everything that is provided for me through the LSU system and the people of Louisiana. It's such a familial, communal state. It's awesome. And so, but anyway, so thank you all, and I'm glad to be here with you today.
Faculty member?
I do
never put an Irishman in front of a microphone. That's it. I'd like to thank all of you first for your willingness to serve. I'd like to thank you for dealing with the troubles we have, and I'd like to be thankful for the troubles, for those are the things that will make us stronger. A couple of things about my school that I think you should know. It's much better than many of you may believe. In my English department alone, we have people from Auburn, from New York, which is where I'm from New Mexico, from North Carolina, and from LSU as well. Our larger faculty is equally diverse. We have people from China, not only our chancellor. We have people from India, people from Ireland, people from, from Zaire. So even though we're small, and in a small community, we represent a diverse community committed to the ideal of higher education. So I'd like to simply close with telling you this, that every one of the people I teach with believes it is a privilege to teach in an institution dedicated to higher education. Thank you very much.
I'll just point out, if I can, that the enrollment continues to grow at LSUA, and now LSUA is over 3,400 students, which makes it bigger than Wake Forest. So I want to make that point. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. We will now have the election of chair-elect. Are there any nominations?
I nominate James Williams as chair-elect of the LSU Board of Supervisors.
Are there any other nominations?
I second that motion for Mr. James Williams.
Okay, y'all are going off my script. We got a process, as Ann would say, a policy here.
Scott, just wing it.
Showing support, you know.
Yeah, I am. All right, so I second the motion. So does Stanley. So does Lauren.
I second.
And I didn't ask you.
I'll second.
All right, is there any objection? Without objection, Mr. James Williams, you are now the new chair-elect of the LSU Board of Supervisors. So,
Scott, I'll volunteer to handle his bankruptcy since it's cost you so much time from your practice. I'll be glad to explain it to your law partners as well. And your wife.
so Stanley, I do assume that you'll give him a family friends discount on your services.
But I will swear him in.
Okay. So anyway, I'll go to the next thing. James, we're very proud to have you serve as chair-elect. I know you are. I know your family is, and I'm very thankful for your willingness to do that.
How proud would Mr. Barney be today, if he could see you?
Okay, we now administer the oath of office for the chairman first, then we will administer the chair-elect. Steve's longtime and dear friend, Kevin Cunningham, and Rodney Braxton will administer Steve's oath.
Where is James? Where? Okay. He moving me. He's putting me out.
up in the world, bud. Lisa, they put you by this hole. Oh, well, James, it's been nice.
Well, I've enjoyed my time here.
Still moving up. Oh, are we changing places? Oh, Lord. Y'all don't go yet. I gotta say something about you. Then you can go. I know, I thought about that.
You gave my, I just laughed. I was so happy.
You're in my chair. Where am I sitting?
He's got good.
It's PJ's coffee stains all over my chair.
I'm not even answering that.
Good stains, huh, Scott?
That's right. Not even commenting.
Hey, Scott, the chair's a little cooler.
Oh, right. I forgot. We have, where's Gavin? Yeah. We need you to, I'm doing it. Oh, Mr. Jacobs is gonna do it. Okay.
James. Actually, where's the, knowing James, you probably have it memorized. I will go ahead and follow the script. State your name, please.
James Williams,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the United States,
and the laws of the United States,
the Constitution and the laws of this state,
the Constitution and laws of this state,
and the bylaws of the LSU Board of Supervisors,
and the bylaws of the LSU Board of Supervisors,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially discharge
and impartially discharge
and perform all the duties incumbent on me as chair-elect
as chair-elect
of the Board of Supervisors
of the Board of Supervisors
according to the best of my ability
according to the best of my ability
and understanding.
and understanding.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You're the man.
Scott just blocked my number, my phone number.
Before I read, we're gonna recognize Scott and talk just for a minute about this past year, but before I do, and Ronnie knows I don't talk very much, so.
Okay.
I just wanted to say a couple of things, because this is extremely meaningful for me, because I grew up on this campus. You know, I went to University High, my father was a professor and a dean. He was a finalist for the LSU presidency back in 1972, and Dr. Wooden won it. You know, we grew up here, and this is home. I mean, I can remember crawling over the wooden barriers around when they were building the LSU Union. That tells you how long ago it was. And it was back in the days when you could just you knew every faculty member. You could walk into everybody's office, including administrators, and we were all scared to death of Miss Van Falkenberg, who ran the Board of Supervisors like a, Stanley, you probably don't even remember her.
Even before me.
That's even before you. That's going back. But I want to pay special thanks to my mom, who's here today, who just turned 90 this spring. She's been involved with the faculty wives groups and lunch at the faculty clubs for 50-something years. And she's starting, this year will be her 61st year going to LSU football games, and she never misses. And so, Mom, we're looking forward to another great year, and she loves Coach O, which is kind of fun. Next to her, my daughter, I just want to say thanks to Dr. Oye. My daughter, Bronwyn, got her BS and MS in nursing. Of course, she was in New Orleans at the Health Sciences Center and got her PhD here from the flagship campus. She's now Associate Dean of Nursing at, I don't even know the new name, but Our Lady of the Lake Medical College. And she was all happy last night because all of her graduates passed on their first try. So that was great, 100%. That was great. And of course, I'm the only one who brings their ex-wife to have them sign him, and my best friend Cameron, because she knows all y'all wanted to see everybody and say hi. And then if Christy's husband doesn't behave, she'll be my next wife. So we'll keep it. Christy was Undersecretary of Economic Development for Governor Jindal, and she's Regional Vice President of Anthem and was our higher education advisor. And I want to pay special thanks Kevin Cunningham and Rodney Braxton. We kind of grew up together in the Louisiana Senate quarter of a century ago, and they were the first two assistant chiefs of staff with me running the governor's office during the glory days of higher ed, when we did faculty and staff pay raises every year and gave $100 million in deferred maintenance to LSU and a lot of good things, but I don't think we're able to do that anymore. But guys, thank you all so much for being here. Cameron, thank you so much for coming up from New Orleans. We're gonna all be at the ball game tomorrow, so we're gonna have fun. But I just can't tell you guys how much it means to me, and thank you so much. I'll be calling each of you over the next couple of weeks to talk to you about what your expectations are, what your thoughts are, priorities, your suggestions. You've all got my cell phone. We're all in this together. That's the great thing about this board. There's no partisanship on it. We are one team trying to figure out how to advance LSU. I may be the only person to serve as chairman with a bachelor's degree in Russian area studies, Russian history and language, and a master's degree in prehistoric archaeology. God help us. We're gonna have all kind of fun things to talk about as we go. So, just for a second, I have a resolution we want to read. Mr. Scott Ballard. Scott is a very unique person, especially for someone who's got green wave blood coursing through them. He's got an extraordinary family that's done amazing things in business and in helping the communities, all the communities in which they live. Scott, it's been a tumultuous year. You've gotten an awful lot done and done so much to help. I know you guys just launched the thing helping people of Houston, and everyone here is extremely proud of all the efforts you do. Everybody thinks about him as owning PJ's Coffees, but the reality is that's not even 10% of all the great stuff that he and his brothers, and got to meet a lot of the brothers the other day, do. But on behalf of everyone on the board, we appreciate your incredible investment of time and your energy and your character and just the passion that you have for LSU. And we thank you, and we've got a quick resolution to read in, and I'm going to ask Stephanie to put it into the minutes. Whereas Scott Ballard was appointed to the Board of Supervisors of LSU on July 12, 2012, and whereas Mr. Ballard was selected as chair-elect of the LSU Board of Supervisors on September 18, 2015, and whereas he assumed the chairmanship of the board on August 29th, that's a fateful day, 2016, whereas Mr. Ballard navigated the tragic aftermath of severe flooding in the capital region during his term, showing true leadership by harnessing the board's efforts toward recovery into meaningful action, and we were very proud of that. Whereas Mr. Ballard dedicated countless hours providing political guidance and business acumen to the President and the Board, especially relating to preserving funding for the TOPS program in higher education during this past 2017 legislative session. And whereas Mr. Ballard led the Board to approve the return of the beloved Tiger Legacy Scholarship, to hire a new football coach and basketball coach, and to name the African American Cultural Center after former Board Chairman Mr. Clarence Barney. And whereas Mr. Ballard has served with distinction as the chair of the board, and during his tenure, LSU welcomed its most diverse entering class in history, had an increase in enrollment overall for all LSU institutions, the largest graduating class on record, and raises for faculty and staff. So that shows what good coffee for everybody can do. Whereas Mr. Ballard always approached decision-making with an analytical mind and a deep commitment to the success and advancement of LSU and its students, faculty, and staff. And whereas Mr. Ballard made himself accessible at all times to board members, President Alexander, and the staff, while impressively balancing multiple personal, professional, and community obligations, most important among which being his loving wife, Christy, and his beautiful children. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Louisiana State University does hereby express its appreciation to Mr. Scott Ballard for his leadership and contributions to the advancement of LSU, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be presented to Mr. Ballard as an expression of gratitude from this board and university, and that this resolution be entered into the permanent record of the Louisiana State University Board of Supervisors. Scott, on behalf of all of us, thank you. Great job. Very, very good.
I'll say, thank you, Steve. It's very kind, and you're a personal friend, and to have you help to do that and to pass the gavel on to you makes it that much more special. So I appreciate the kind words, and I can just tell you that have a lot of faults and surely have things I can improve on. But the one thing I try to strive for is if you commit to something, then you do it. You commit 100%. Whether you're right or wrong, as long as you're given that, no one can judge you in an ill way and be reasonable. So I learned that from my grandfather, and I do tell myself that every day. So I don't know how to do things at 50%. I only know 100. A funny story, when I was a football player at St. Paul's High School. Sorry, Stanley. I love Covington High, too. At St. Paul's High School, just a couple years after Stanley finished at Covington. And it was my senior year, and my coach was yelling at me because he said the drill was supposed to be 50%. He's like, why'd you hit him 50%, mad at me. I said, Coach, I said, I'm 165 pounds, he's 240 pounds. My 50% is a lot different than his. So I don't have 50%. It's either touch or tackle. Well, I kind of try to take on life that way. And I appreciate this board. I appreciate the hard work. I think most people in here know that it is a labor of love. It is a vocation, and it is something, when I moved back, and I've said this before, to Louisiana in 2002 to raise my children, I said that I was going to get involved in higher education, and lower and K through 12 was how I wanted to do that. And I appreciate having that role on the Board of Regents in here and trying to make a little difference. So thank you all very, very much. I'm sad to hand it over, but very glad in so many ways. Thank you.
First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the board meeting on June 22nd. Are there any questions, corrections that any of you have noticed that are necessary on the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The The motion is adopted. We'll now move on to item 6, which are personal actions requiring board approval. The board, you all have in front of you a set of personnel actions. Do you have any questions that you would like to address? Is there a motion to approve the personnel actions? Mr. Anderson moves approval. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Plessis, second. Is there any objection to the adoption of the motion? Hearing no objection, the motion is adopted. At this time, I'm making a motion that we go into executive session to complete the annual evaluation of the president, something that we do each year at this time. Is there a motion, Mr. Chatelain, to move into executive session? So moved. Mr. Yarborough, second. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion is adopted. We're going to step into the conference room and move into a very, very brief executive session, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
And it's way to shoot a day, huh?
problem now, we're going to call you. I was told that this time they said they were going to test it, but they weren't paying for it unless they were satisfied. They were paying up front. It's going to test it. Does that meet our expectations? That was told.
Is that right?
approved her leave. And she had no idea what I was talking. I didn't know her name. We went to, we had a happy hour. And then we introduced our sister. Thanks, baby. That's the one that I'm approving the leave for. And so that was early on. I do a lot of this stuff at night.
Right.
Three names popped up in the planning session. I sent her a civil service.
Delegated somebody to my input and so all
get everybody back in order and get your seats and all the board members back in. We have a motion by Mr. McCollister to call an end to the executive session and to move back into regular session. Lauren Johnson, seconds.
Second.
And is there any objection to the adoption of the motion to end the executive session? Hearing no objection, that motion is unanimously adopted. I want to wait until we need the president back in the room now.
He went to the rec center.
We probably scared him to death. Oh, what, he's got a 4 o'clock meeting. Let's get him back. Shh, there he is. Mr. President, welcome back.
Thank
We just
you.
had a very interesting session, going through your evaluation, our thoughts, and I want to state for the record, both to you and to the public and to the board, that the evaluation was extraordinarily positive. We are honored to have you as our president. We love the image that you project for our university, your presence, not only downtown, but from the ag community to the medical community. You have dealt with so many issues. And when you look at from issues that are very emotionally charged, issues that related to flooding, issues that have related to race, issues that have related to young people, your board thinks you are doing an outstanding job. We're going to write this up. And one thing that came through that was extremely interesting was that there is a belief that is widely held throughout the campus, and this may be the ultimate, that you are deeply respected and held in great affection by the students. And that really matters because you have a great ear with a tone for understanding and putting the students first and thinking about their families and their parents. And we think you're hitting all the right notes in making them understand that they are why we exist. And we thank you very much for that. We have we'll be preparing, I'll be writing up a lot of the notes and suggestions and targets for the coming years. And you've got a great strategic plan. You've got a great team working for you that the board has tremendous respect in all across sitting here, which really makes a difference. And so on behalf of all of us, it was a pleasure to do your evaluation. I'll be sitting down with you in person, and then we'll be writing a lot of this up. And there's great good feeling going forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
And we
Chair.
thank you so much.
And I thank this team. This team has done a great job and moves this institution forward. And it's an honor to work for this board and our students.
It's time now for the staff advisors and faculty advisor report. There's not a staff advisor today, but I'd like to recognize Dr. Ken McMillan and ask if he would like to address the board on behalf of the Council of Faculty Advisors. Ken?
Thank you, Chair Perry. I think I'm the first one to officially say that. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Most of you realize that I cannot replace Kevin. Won't try to replace Kevin, but he is on sabbatical, but he's not forgotten, and he will be here occasionally. We do want to thank the supervisors who assisted in educating the legislators and governor's staff this past session. We know that you have different networks than our administrators do and the faculty and other staff. We appreciate that. We would ask that you not only continue, but you continue even harder, because we know the surmountable problems that they're going to be this next spring. We appreciate the raises that faculty on most campuses, I haven't been able to confirm all, but I think all but one are confirmed that we'll be definitely giving raises to the faculty and some of the staff. We are appreciative of that, and that's probably due to the efforts that we had for a more stable budget. I won't go into a lot of details. I'll try and give the high spots of faculty activities. one of the things that we're appreciative on the A&M campus is that we will turn our 2 graduate assistants for faculty senate business into a full-time administrative assistant. So I appreciate Provost Kubek and Vice Provost Cassidy in making that happen. We were appreciative that we were able to be a part of the Vice President for Strategic Communications interviews. We understand that there wasn't any individual that quite fit all of our needs for both internal and external communications. On the one hand, we have to have the right person in there. On the other hand, that's going to tie everything together from the strategic plan, both internally and externally. So we're cognizant that we have to have the right person, but we don't want to tarry too long in actually being aggressive on that. Another issue that came up the end of last spring semester, and we may or may not be able to pull it off, is that we're going to have a forum and dialogue on live animals and lively campuses. That fits in with our new tiger habitat, our new tiger, and some of the concerns that we have about keeping a wild animal in captivity. So Kevin is coordinating that with Emily Hatfield out of the administrative offices. We're re-evaluating general education and how it's put forth at LSU, and that will spread across the campuses again as we have a student enterprise system, so that there will be more transferability and maybe some more cohesiveness among the campuses, as well as targeting more what our undergraduates in their respective programs actually need. Right now, the general attitude is, I have to take this as a general education course out of my normal curriculum. We want to move that into, I can take this and enrich my experiences at LSU by taking this course that may not be in my technical area. Obviously, things like game day policy, making those experiences better, commencement atmosphere, making that more conducive to a celebratory process rather than a delegatory process. Those are all also on the faculty's agenda. We had a really big success this last month due to the continuing efforts of faculty leaders across the state. Jim Robinson, Bernard Gallagher, I, and Kevin representing LSU, and Brian Salvatore from LSU in Shreveport. We were able to meet with some of the other faculty leaders, with the governor's chief of staff, general counsel, and educational advisor, and had a really productive dialogue on how we can help move the higher education agenda forward, knowing that we have a different perspective than the Board of Regents, than the Board of Supervisors, and our administrators. And so we think that's very productive as far as moving higher education forward, as far as recognition in the state and within the executive branch of the government. We will be having our statewide faculty collaborative along with the Association of Louisiana Faculty Senates in Alexandria next weekend, next Saturday, and Commissioner Rollo will be addressing that group probably as his last formal meeting with that group. Lastly, we encourage you to continue your conversations and dialogues with the legislators. We understand you've got a different network. We understand you've got different missions and goals than some of the rest of us, but we're all headed the same direction, and we know that, along with developing the appropriate workforce, higher education, and those educational opportunities just enrich the lives of citizens in Louisiana. So we would urge you, and we would dedicate ourselves to helping however we can do that to help you do your jobs better as members of the Board of Supervisors. Lastly, I'd like to thank past chair now, Mr. Ballard, for his leadership this past year, and to offer our best wishes and full support of Mr. Perry and Mr. Williams in their new roles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. McMillan. Any questions of Dr. McMillan? And thanks very much.
Thank you. Jason told me that I wouldn't get any questions, so I appreciate that.
Questions get shorter at 3:30. Now we look forward to the President's report. Dr. Alexander.
There's no staff report.
No staff report?
I don't know. I was just asking. No staff report. Okay.
Okay.
All All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask Dean Galligan to please come forward, and it's been 2 years now since we've officially put together or brought the Law Center back into the main bloodstream of the university campus, and I just wanted to see if he could give us an update on some of the progress that we've made now that it's fully accredited and everything's been taken care of and it's moving forward, and he's doing such a good job over there. We wanted him to give a number of you, particularly a number of our lawyers, an update on the Law Center.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, President Alexander, and thank you for letting me address you. I will talk for just a couple of minutes about alignment, and I will start with a very brief story. 31 and a half years ago, I arrived at LSU to start my teaching career at the LSU Law Center. And I was eager and I was excited, and I got an invitation to an open house at the Union from the LSU Baton Rouge campus. And I went and got my colleague John Devlin, who started with me and who's still teaching at LSU, and together we walked across and we got in the receiving line, and we got to the then chancellor, and he said, "Well, what unit are you in?" And we said, "Law." And he said, "Don't you have your own chancellor?" Let me tell you, it is a much different world today than it was then, and it is a better place. We're integrated, we're collaborating, the opportunities absolutely abound. Many things were possible when we were a separate campus, they just didn't seem to happen, and now they're happening. Like what? Well, we have a 3+3, and I'll tell you what that is in a second, with humanities and social sciences. We have a new 3+3 with Manship School of Mass Communications, and we're working on one with Coast and Environment. So you wonder, what's a 3+3? It is a pathway to a student's success. What it means is that a student spends 3 years as an undergraduate, and if they meet our criteria and they're admitted, their 4th year as an undergrad is their 1st year of law school. So that in 6 years rather than 7, they receive both a bachelor's degree and a law degree. They save 1 year in tuition and fees. In fact, their 1st year of law school, the tuition that we charge them is their undergraduate tuition. If they're eligible for TOPS for that 1st year, they get to keep that as well. So what does it mean? It means that we are recruiting students to come to LSU and stay at LSU. If they want to leave, that's fine, that's great, but they're going to have to spend another year to get their undergraduate degree. But we think what it's going to mean is we're going to get to keep a lot of great students who started LSU at LSU through law school. And that's key for us because in the last 10 years in American legal education, applications have declined by about 50%, and at LSU they've declined by about 1/3. So we need every leg up that we can get, and we're working hard with our colleagues in HSS and Manship, and hopefully with Coast and Environment soon, to bring in more and keep them here. 3+3s are typical throughout American legal education, and we had one 45 years ago. But guess what happened? When we became separate, it went away, and now it's back. Joint degrees. We've got 5 joint degrees that our students can get at the LSU Law Center, at the Paul M. Hebert Law Center. Now we could add to that because of the collaboration and the spirit of integration. And we've added one since reintegration, and that's a JD MSW, a JD with a master's in social work. Joint appointments. We have a brand new colleague, Ralph Donaldson. He has his PhD in philosophy from Northwestern. He has his JD from Northwestern, and he's working with us a quarter of the time, and with religion and religious studies and philosophy 3/4 of the time. So we get some cross-pollination there. I get to attend dean's meetings, which actually are really wonderful. We collaborate together, we talk to one another, and we come up with ideas. Whether we were separate or not, I would get to work with the president, which is absolutely a real treat, but I wouldn't get to work with the provost, and the provost's fantastic staff, and Rick's one of the best people I've met in 32 years in higher education, and so are his staff. We have faculty serving on university committees on Title IX, on tenure and promotion. We have representatives in the staff senate. We have representatives in the faculty senate working hard. The dean of library, Stanley Wilder, is on our search for a director of the library at the Law Center. We're working with Coast and Environment and the Energy Institute through our John P. Laborde Energy Law Center to come up with joint programs for lawyers and for others. We have a diversity and professionalism committee at the law school. The purpose of that committee is to help us become as diverse and inclusive an environment as we can be. Because if we're not teaching in diverse and inclusive classrooms today, we are not preparing our students for life in this world in the 21st century. We have put on a series of programs through that committee, not just for our community, but we've worked with Derek and the Office of Diversity to make those programs available for the entire campus. So if I can allude to some questions I heard to someone else earlier on another topic, what's going on right now is great, but the potential is absolutely uncapped, and we're not worried about that. We're excited about that. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions about anything.
Questions for our dean? Thank you for your work and all you're doing. It's really, really impacting our students. And how many are in the 3+3 program now?
We've got 80 in the pipeline in HSS. We've actually got 5 that have already started with us, and they're not supposed to be here yet. So for those students, they came with a year's worth of AP credits.
Yeah.
So for them, it's going to be a 2+3 program.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's 5 years instead of 6.
Can I ask Dean, what was the projected class, entering class this year in law school? How did you hit your targets, or what's the demand?
We would love to have 300 for our budget, but that would be irresponsible. Our goal was we had 198 last year, 172 the year before. That in there is really our sweet zone, and we have 180 new students. About 75% from Louisiana, 25% from other places, 19% self-identify as students of color, 13% self-identify as African Americans, more women than men.
Okay, where are you from?
Originally, I'm from New Jersey.
I'll tell you what, I thought.
But I've met a lot of people from New Jersey, and most of the smart ones have
your
left.
Enthusiasm, you sound like a Cajun to me.
Well, I taught here for 12 years, and then I left and wandered in the field, and it's great to be back.
That Louisiana enthusiasm has come out today.
Okay, well,
He taught our governor, too, in law school.
yeah. My favorite student.
Thank you, Dean Gallagher.
Okay, thank you.
very much. Thank you. I'd like to turn to Bill Richardson on the Mitigation Bank in the Ag Center, just as that update.
Well, the hour's late. What I'm going to talk about is not the most exciting thing in the world, but Mr. McCollister's been encouraging me for several years to make this presentation. So, Ralph, I think we're getting closer. I want to take a few minutes and share with you a proposal we're making relative to placing some of the property we own in St. Gabriel in a wetlands mitigation bank. I believe there's a presentation here, if I can operate this. Obviously not. Which button I push? Okay, now, I'll try to go through this pretty quickly. You can read this thing, but just to give you a little bit about it, that mitigation is a wetland enhancement, restoration, creation, preservation project. It basically takes land that's in a certain use and puts it away so they can't be used for that purpose. For example, farmland can't be farmed, goes back into trees and so forth. New construction projects dictate that some people have to mitigate the wetlands by purchasing a point. And we've got a lot of that, especially where this property is located, which makes the mitigation points very worthwhile. There's certain permits have to be used, and this is also administered by the Corps of Engineers. And so we're going to get another lesson in bureaucracy when we move this direction, because it's going to take a lot to get it done. The next chart kind of shows this to you in a graphic form. The developer that needs to impact the wetlands, the bank that has the wetlands point in it, the dollar sign there in the middle is the exchange of money that goes with that, and then the regulatory agency being the Corps of Engineers. Our objective is to establish a public-private partnership for wetlands restoration, research, teaching, and demonstration at the LSU Agricultural Center Reproductive Biology Center in St. Gabriel. Justification for this, we have several hundred acres in St. Gabriel that is considered suitable for a wetlands mitigation bank. The available mitigation property in South Louisiana projects is minimal, making St. Gabriel property. This is along 30. I'll show you a map in a minute, which is some very valuable property, and we're quite interested in doing this. We also know that what makes this property available is all the budget cuts we've gone through in the last 8 years. We've got some land now we used to have grazing cattle on. We're in active research projects, no longer doing that, so it's setting idle. We're having to keep it mowed, so to speak. So this is an excellent way to take something we're not using and convert it into something we can use. You see the map. I hope you can see this. You see in the bottom left-hand corner the Mississippi River. So we have river frontage. The Sugar Research Station occupies the next area there, and that red line going through the lower left-hand side is Nicholson, or US 30. The northern, or the other part of that toward your upper right-hand side is the rest of the property, 1,860 acres are located there. About 1,000 acres of this qualifies for mitigation banking based on its soil structure and what's there. Those of you familiar with the area, if you look at the upper right-hand corner, it's that Spanish Lake area. Almost all of that land in that area is already in a mitigation bank. And so we would expect that some of those folks may be quite interested in looking at the property we're talking about here. Another view of this shows what happened in the 2016 floods. The blue area, as you might guess, is where it was flooded. You can see a great portion of what we just got through talking about actually was flooded during that particular time. So what they'll have to do as part of this obligation is put this piece of property back into what, quote, its original form, which means planting trees on it. We can use it for an educational program. I just can't farm it and I can't graze it. But our School of Renewable Natural Resources will have basically a 1,000-acre outdoor laboratory that they can start from ground zero on, and these students can get some great experience developing this over the next several decades, actually, as we go through this. You as a board still own the property. We're not giving up ownership of the property, and we will own the trees that are planting on it. They won't let us log the trees by conventional methods, but we will own the timber that's on there as we go forth with this whole project. For the justification is that the ownership is maintained, as I said. Mitigation they have to do their function. It's in perpetuity. I don't know if I can pronounce that or not. Anyway, for a long time. And so we want to make sure that you understand that we're giving up the right to use this. Now, they consider 30 years to be a long time in some cases with this, but once we do this, we can't come back next week and say, oops, we'd like to have it back, because they're going to say, oops, you're not getting it back anytime soon. And there's a tremendous need for this type of research. We have a lot going on with the floods we've had, and heaven knows what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks relative to some additional environmental issues. So the timing of this couldn't be better. We'd like to go ahead and get the SFO started. We've got one pretty much developed. I just want to bring something to you cold, that you having some indication that we were coming with it. We hope to get that done fairly soon, get this process started. Again, this will be a while getting made, because we will have to coordinate this with the Corps of Engineers, and that's not something that will happen easily and happen quickly. But I just don't want you to come up in one meeting and have there's a SFO on your agenda and you not be aware of where we are and what we're going with this. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them for you. But we're ready to move on this, and I would like to have your general support to do so.
What's the potential revenue, Bill?
What's that?
What's the potential revenue?
I'm going to try to dodge that question as best I can, because I don't want something in the media saying we're going to get this with it.
How much do you get an acre in mitigation?
But some of the points can go for 30,000 up an acre in different areas, depending on the supply and demand. And so we hope it's going to be up.
Good job.
Great job, Chancellor.
And I'm sure Rolf was leading you the whole way.
He's been encouraging me for quite some time, and so it's a happy day for him. So
it's really amazing that you held him off this long.
I tried to dodge him in a few meetings just to see what he asked.
Anybody? Okay, thank you, Bill. Thank you very much for the update. Just a couple short notes here. Enrollment overall is going to be most likely be up about 1% or 2%, primarily because LSU E, A, and S are going up proportionally. S up 22%, E up another 5%, over 3,000 for the first time in ever. A is up 34 to 3,400. That's largest enrollment, up 4%. Main campus, we're down freshmen about 400, but overall head count will be about flat, right about flat. Overall enrollment is going to be up. One thing I wanted to mention about the strategic plan, it's also going to be the catalyst for our capital campaign, of which we've raised about, in the quiet phase up to this point, about $450 million. Hoping to nearly triple that by the time we, in about an 18-month period, when we hope to be able to make a public announcement. We hope to have that doubled and then move on to possibly tripling that as we go forward in the capital campaign. I want to thank Chancellor Russell and LSUE for extending a waiver of out-of-state, a waiver to waive the out-of-state fee for tuition and fees for our students who are from East Texas, who have been impacted by Harvey. That will go on for 1 year, and we'll reassess it at the end of the year. And we appreciate her awareness of those students in great need. LSU Shreveport is celebrating its 50th anniversary celebration. Chancellor Clark, you have anything to share with us?
Thank you for the fact that you'll be there on the 18th of September, which is our first day, and so we've invited people from the community and legislators and all to be there. We would welcome any of the Board of Supervisors. We know that actually would have loved to have you been meeting there for our 50th anniversary, but we're looking forward to it, and thank you for coming.
Great. We're down to 4 candidates in the Pennington search, and they'll be coming to campus and meeting a lot of people, and so we hope to have by the next time we come together, we hope to have a new executive director of Pennington. We appreciate all the work that they're doing. A couple side notes, I think, bragging points I'd like to share with you. With regard to enrollment, there was a report that came out from the New York Times that basically was chastising most universities, flagship and elite universities around the United States, for not improving upon the numbers that they had back in 1980 with regard to African American, underrepresented Hispanic student numbers. For example, the one I love the most is Yale had 4% African American population in 1980. It has 4% today. And they only have, the difference is they have $13 billion in the bank, and they probably could do better. Our university of the 50 flagships, our main campus of the 50 flagship universities in this report shows that we had the largest percentage of African Americans as a percentage of our freshman class of any flagship university in the United States. It's 14%, we can do better, but 14% was better than all other 100 universities in the United States. Some are going down. We increased it from 1980 from 10% to 14%. And I know the last 2 years, which this study ended in 15, we've seen increases in African American enrollments both years, as well as Hispanic enrollments, which have grown from 2 to 6%, which places us 4th in the SEC in Hispanic enrollments, and that includes Texas and Florida, who have made big jumps in Hispanic enrollments. But we're 4th and 1st in the nation with regard to our progress on our students' diversification. It's a great sign, and no wonder our graduation numbers have never been better when it comes to students from underrepresented backgrounds. And finally, the point I like, and I know that some faculty get a little concerned when I bring this up because it's not always about earnings. I know it's not always about earnings, and we've gone through a lot of 10 years of struggles, but the new ranking in payscale.com came out, and you have this as part of your package. It shows that an LSU graduate in all alumni categories of the 50 flagship universities in the United States, an LSU graduate ranks 21st in the United States. We're tied with Chapel Hill, and we're tied with Ohio State. Mid-career earnings, we even move up 3 more notches. We move up to number 18th, which means our students are even getting better as they get older and doing more things as leaders and everything else, and we move up to 18th above North Carolina and above Ohio State. So our graduates are doing great. It's a real tribute to our faculty and staff. And I want to connect the dots finally with a great thanks to the work that everybody did to ensure that they got a salary increase. Because this is the results. These are the results of just ongoing work. For 10 years, the extra burden was indeed put on the backs of our faculty and staff on each of our campuses. And as long as these numbers keep growing and we keep out producing what people think where we are or where we should be, this is a great testimony to the faculty and staff and the work and our student body and the work that everybody's doing together. So I'll take it for now that we're ranked 18th in mid-career earnings among the best universities in the United States. And I'll take a little pride in the fact that we're above North Carolina, Ohio State, Iowa, Indiana, the whole slew, and the vast majority of SEC schools. So this is a real tribute to the work that everybody's doing. So I thank you, everybody, for what they've done.
Does that conclude your
That,
report?
that concludes my report.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman.
I would like to thank you for what you've done. You were part of that, King.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Now, as is the custom of the board, we'll entertain a single motion in globo to approve all committee actions that were unanimously approved this morning. That would be the action from all committees except one, the athletic committee regarding personnel and salary actions. We'll consider that one separately.
So moved,
Mr. Yarborough moves, Mr. McAllister seconds. Is there any objection to the adoption of the in globo motion for approval of committee actions? Hearing no objections, that motion is adopted. The final one is the action of the Athletics Committee to establish salaries and contract levels for a number of personnel. There was some discussion about that, so we'll act upon that separately. Mr. Chatelain moves the adoption of the committee action. Mr. McAllister second. All those opposed, say aye. I'm sorry, all those in favor say aye. Aye. See, y'all were awake. Very, very good. Everybody except the chairman was awake. And all of those opposed, Mr. Jacobs opposed with the clarification that he made this morning regarding Coach Bro's salary. So that motion is adopted. The next item relates to our board scholarships. At the June meeting, we amended the board scholarship policy in an effort to adapt it to recent changes in the TOPS legislation. The proposed change today is geared to adding some clarification on the tuition exemption in some of the professional programs, to modify the application procedures now that they're online, and adjusting some process dates. We want to make sure that staff is not having to interpret. We want to provide for full clarity, and I recognize, although this normally is under the committee of Mr. James Moore, Mr. James Williams will present this to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated at our last meeting, we adopted scholarship policy changes. Today's, and those changes, by the way, are reflected in redline version in the board materials. I'll go over briefly, describe those changes, and anyone can look at the red line for any more detail. The first change simply, and today's proposals are not substantial changes, they are just clarifications to ensure compliance, etc. The first change is simply tightening the language to clarify that students may only receive one scholarship at a time, which is our current practice. There was some concern. The lawyers on the board, and I'll say it generally, read the scholarship policy, and it left open to interpretation whether or not a student could receive both an out-of-state tuition exemption and in other words, the out-of-state fee waiver and a tuition exemption. And although that has been against the practice of the board, the language of the policy wasn't sufficiently clear, so the first change has clarified that the non-resident fee scholarship counts as a tuition award, of which a student is only entitled to one. The second change reflects the university's move from a paper application to an online application process. The third change moves up or back, depending on Mr. Drade and how you look at it. Instead of August 15th being the deadline for scholarships, August 1st will now be the deadline to submit scholarships. This obviously gives us the same amount of time to review the scholarships, but it's going to help the students plan accordingly. Finally, there are certain programs like medicine and law that have a prescribed amount, and we'd like to add two programs to that, the MBA program and the Master of Occupational Therapy, to the list of professional programs that receive a certain prescribed amount when a student is given a scholarship in one of those programs. That summarizes the changes. With that, I'll take any questions and move to adopt the changes if there are no questions.
Any questions of Mr. Williams?
I'd make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Chatelain has made a motion to adopt. Drew a blank, Mary. Mary has seconded the motion. Is there any objection to the adoption of the motion? Hearing no objection, the motion is adopted. We've got a ribbon cutting at 4 o'clock today, and we have only missed that.
4:15.
I'm sorry, at 4:08 today. We have dedication at the University Recreation Center. We encourage everyone to attend and to inspire to be heart healthy when you go over there. The next board meeting will be held on October 13th in Baton Rouge. I will tell you that at one point during the year, we will have exercising chairman's prerogative one meeting in New Orleans. So Dr. Oye, be ready to help me host in New Orleans. We'll have one board meeting down there and try to have a little fun for you guys when you come as well. Mr. Plessis moves to adjourn the meeting today. Mary Werner seconds the motion. And is there any objection? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Mary, I'm so sorry. I did a total blank.
No, you're out.
It's old man.